The views expressed in this presentation are expressly those of the presenter and do not reflect the official policy or position of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, the United States Air Force, Department of Defense, or United States government.
Welcome to the Keys to Military Success. This is the show that you've been waiting for. The show that exposes the emotional, physical, intellectual, spiritual, and social dimensions of a successful military career by none other than the experts on the battlefield, Team R.E.D Alert led by Christian Sledge. Trust me, folks, I've had the privilege of consulting with them, and let me tell you, the results speak volumes. I'm talking about beast mode activated. And the team's not here just to talk the talk, they're here to walk you through it all. We're going to be talking about strategic consultations, operational insights, and decision-making gems. The team will be consulting with strategic and operational leaders and decision makers, extracting tactics, techniques, and procedures, unlocking your true potential. That's how they roll, and that's just how they get down. So without further ado, let's turn up the volume and get ready to rumble. It's time to hear from my mentor and the team, the Keys to Military Success, Christian Sledge, and the R.E.D Alert. Class is in session. Let's go.
And go we shall. Thank you, Felicia Rickerford and Tanya Madrano for the opening. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Keys of Military Success. I am your host, Christian, the Hype Man Sledge. And it's also co-hosted by Corps cadets who are known as Team R.E.D Alert. Our home is Air Force ROTC, Detachment 4, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, the Rebel Nation. Our show is for everyone who seeks guidance, mentorship, and leadership advice from none other than the leaders themselves. We provide the information for those before, during, and after their careers in the armed forces. The time has come for you to stop watching everyone else ascend to their military prowess and start living your own success stories. Today, in observance of Women's History Month, we have a very special key holder for the entire Lady Warfighter 13 in nuclear missile enterprise, as well as the entire 20th Air Force, none other than the one and only commander, 20th Air Force Global Strike Commander, F.E. Warren Air Force Base, Major General Stacy Jo Huser. I personally know General Huser as a professional mentor, personal friend of mine. She was my wing commander at the 90th Missile Wing when I was a missileer at the 321st Missile Squadron. To this day, we talk from time to time to push each other to keep going, being one-on-ones, and the enterprise and all. She will be mentoring us about her personal achievements in the United States Air Force, being a one of one as a lady missileer, flag officer in the United States Air Force. That should come along with some personal and professional adversities that she had to face and how she managed to conquer them all and still crush it as a mom, wife, and continuing to represent the Lady Warfighters across the DoD in the world. Okay, here come the facts. Hype's gonna give it to you. Let's get it all the way straight. To date, 18 Air Force joint assignments got her to this point. Currently mentioned before, but I gotta mention to you again and again, so get it right. She is the commander of the 20th Air Force at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming. As commander, she leads 12,000 military, civilian, and contractor personnel in the nuclear deterrence mission across the United States and the world. She was commissioned in 1996 via OTS, that's Officer Training School, with her bachelor's degree in psychology, and has since then completed multiple graduate degrees across many academic disciplines. She has operational experience with both space and the intercontinental ballistic missile systems as an instructor, evaluator, emergency war order plans chief, and thousands of crew alert hours under her belt. She has completed multiple staff tours across the United States, including the Secretary of the Air Force's Legislative Liaison Office. Personal facts, while I've been around in her wake, I witnessed her do her thing, okay? She always has time for an airman's complaint or concern, right? She's a beast with the dance moves. She's always on the floor doing her thing. A lot of people don't know that, right? Truly an officer and a person who cares for her people regardless of their upbringings and experiences. To me, she's the general's general, but most importantly, she's truly my friend out here in this world, and it can be cold sometimes. So without further ado, it is my unique honor and pleasure to introduce my mentor, my friend, and military success key holder. All hail the Queen of the 20th Air Force, the 20th Air Force Commander herself, Major General Stacy Jo Huser. Good afternoon, ma'am. How are you doing out there?
Hello, I am good. That is the best introduction I've ever had in my entire life. I'm so excited now.
I'm so glad that you felt that. You dug that. They don't call me the hype man for nothing, but they need to understand. They need to get it right? They need to know who's in the building today. Man, it is a very big honor to be able to just have some of your time and be able to just talk to you on the virtual couch, so to speak. First things first, I got to make sure I get this part done. Colonel Grimm, Air Force ROTC Southwest Region Commander, and Det 4 Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Young, send their greetings. They definitely wanted to make sure, hey, please tell her we said what's up. So, but on their behalf, they're saying hello. So I want to make sure
thank you for that. Colonel Grimm is one of my most favorite people and one of my favorite leaders. And I'm just so happy that he's continuing to raise the next generation. He's such a special person.
All right. Wonderful. Okay. So let's pivot to the next side and get right into the questions. Okay. So again, I went over pretty much your bio and all the cool stuff. But I realized I might have missed a couple of things. So given your bio and all the things that you've accomplished throughout the years, what would you say are the most important things that you would want the people to know about you?
Well, I would say one of the most important things, and what I like to tell people when I tell them my story, is that when I joined the Air Force, I never intended to stay. I really didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I needed some direction. So I randomly went down to the Air Force recruiter and signed up and was planning on doing 4 years and figuring out what I wanted to be when I grew up. But 4 years came around and I realized that I loved the missions of the Air Force, but I loved the people doing the missions even more. And I couldn't imagine leaving. So I didn't join for any noble reasons. I joined because I needed a paycheck, but I have never left because I just love the people who do this job.
Wonderful. So, backstory for me too. And I explain this to my cadets all the time. Like, not everybody has patriotism. Like, no, very rare that people join for patriotism. Oh, this, and that's great that they do, but that's not why I joined. I joined because I was broke and I was ashy, and I needed some money to buy some lotion because it was rough out there, in San Diego. So that's why I joined as well. So, but I kept forgetting to hit the button, right? And that's kind of what you described. I kept forgetting to hit it. That's brought us to this point today. So that's pretty cool. So speaking of, Women's History Month, I really want to emphasize that because there's a lot that goes on and a lot of people don't give it a lot of attention. I would like to talk about your childhood and upbringing. Was your upbringing back then as a young woman complementary to how your personality is today, or was your upbringing so opposite that you felt like something needed to change in order to make the person that you are today?
I do think it was pretty complimentary, but I will tell you about a change that I went through. But my childhood was, my parents were pretty amazing. They were very different people. My dad was super type A, very strict. You needed to get all A's, which was hard. But the one thing that he really did for me was he believed that I could do anything. Even though he was kind of old school, he never once doubted that because I was a girl or because I was a woman that I couldn't be whatever I wanted to be in life. And he was always super proud of me and always encouraging me to do my best. And then my mom is the opposite of him. She's very free-spirited. She's very inclusive. She's funny, but she's a very, very hard worker. So from her, I learned early on. I started working in the restaurant business when I was only 10 years old. So I learned very early on to work hard. So between the two of them, they taught me a lot of life skills that very closely related to military life, to strive to be good, to do your best, to work hard, to be inclusive, to be kind, to be funny when you can. I'm not a funny person, but my mom, try to be funny.
Right.
So they taught me all of those things. But I did go through a pretty big transformation, about 10 years in the Air Force. I had always been super, I'm always right. Do it my way or you're wrong. I didn't tolerate even the smallest mistakes or really people who disagreed with me. I wasn't a fun person, I would say, to work with. people. There were
Really?
names. Yes. Yeah.
Really?
I was not a fun person. I will admit that. But around the 10-year point, something in me changed. And I don't know if it was just maturing, or if it was, I had suffered a series of personal losses. So I don't know if it was that, but something in me changed. And I decided that's not the person I am or the person I want to be. So I became, I think, again, I would need to ask the people who I work with if they believe this, but I think I became more compassionate, kinder, definitely more patient, more tolerant, and just a better person to be around. And then that I've never looked back. I don't want to be that icky person who yells, or I just think there's no place for that anywhere. No place for it in the military, no place for it anywhere. There's never a reason to yell at other human beings.
Oh, wow. So, wow, I wish I could dig deep and find out where that transformation happened, right? There's a whole nother chapter in there to find out where that growth happened. Wow. And we would have never known, because just we got what we got. And it was like a lot of people from all over the world was like, oh, I know General Huser, man. She's so cool. And that's all we know. But here you are saying, hey, I had to get there. I had to arrive. Right. So I'm sure there was some battle scars and some experiences and just some time looking at the mirror and just realizing, wow, like something needs to change.
Yeah. And there were some people that I hurt along the way. Because of my behavior or my words. And I've gone back to those people and have apologized probably over and over again until it got weird. Because I just regret being that way. There was no reason for it.
Yeah. We literally were talking about this on our show yesterday. We were kind of talking about the forgiveness, right? The mistakes and the forgiveness and the healing. So a lot of things that you just brought up kind of complement that episode, and you'll hear it when you catch it. But it's about, going back and getting forgiveness. Valentine was there, like literally giving us the would you rather forgiveness versions of that, just knowing that, just hearing it from you way up there is to say, hey, we make mistakes out here. We have to grow. And we have to, seek forgiveness, right? And so that we can move on with our lives. And I think that's really, really cool. And what the cadets need to know, or everybody across the enterprise need to know. It's easier to be kind. Like, it's easier to just be nice. Right. And more things get done that way versus, asserting, being so assertive. Right. In that regard. So
exactly.
I think that was really cool.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that no matter what rank you are in the military, that we're all humans and we're all capable of making mistakes. We're all capable of having bad days. Just last week, I walked in and I was like, hey, you guys, I just got to warn you, I'm kind of grouchy this morning. So just if I say anything weird, it's because I just didn't sleep well and I had nightmares. So I'm a little bit grouchy. And I think that helps just to remind everyone that you work with, that we're all human beings. We're all capable of emotions and mistakes and forgiveness and all of those things. And I love that Cadet Valentine did that. And it's important to forgive others. And it's also very, very important to forgive ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I teach. If you got to forgive yourself too for your mistakes that you make. So were there any specific adversities / empowering moments you experienced being a young girl, young woman in your upbringing that forged you to be that person? I know you mentioned your dad was like a forging tool and your mom was a forging tool. Were there any events or things like, personal experiences you had that said, you know what, this is it. This was the moment that I had blank. Right? Did you ever have those moments?
Well, I will tell you, and hopefully this doesn't get too depressing, but I did have 1 year of my life where my husband and I struggled to get through that year. But once we got through it, we realized that we can do anything. And especially we can do anything together. We had suffered the loss of an infant. My father died. Our cat died. A grandfather died. Like, it was just one thing after another. And it got to the point where we were like it's too much for any two human beings to handle. And the fact that we both got through that time together and came out stronger on the other side, I think that played a strong role in how I developed, and especially how I developed as a leader, and how I try to look at the situations of everybody around me, especially when someone makes a mistake. The first thing you always need to ask is what's going on in their life, not why did they make the mistake or what's wrong with them. It's what's going on in their life, because you have to understand the adversity that everybody is going through.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot. Like, when it rains, it pours. That's a heck of a storm. Yeah. But you made it on the other side of that, and you still were able to press on. So I'm sure that, if anybody came up to you, Airman Snuffy, and said, General, look, all this stuff is happening. You're like, I've been there. right? I've been there. This is how I got through it. And you'll be able to provide that advice that they're probably looking for, you know? So I do want to pivot. Did you guys have to take that on like as a couple by yourselves, like as a unit, or did you have someone that kind of give you guys the advice to kind of push you on?
So I would say that was when I learned the true meaning of your Air Force family. Up until that point, my husband and I were super independent. We can do things on our own. We don't need help. We don't need anybody to take care of us. But during that year, I realized how much I needed my entire military family. And they stepped in without even being asked. And they, gave us things that we needed. They took care of us. They sometimes just hugged us when we needed to cry. They gave us time to grieve. They gave us time off to take care of things. It was just incredible. And you can tell people how important having an Air Force family is, but I think sometimes unless you experience it, you don't truly internalize how meaningful that family is and how meaningful that relationship is.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to make it, kind of digestible, I think of it when I was a kid, like how you describe it as a kid, when I used to watch, the Power Rangers TV show and the Red Ranger would get knocked down. He's the leader, right? The Red Ranger get knocked down, but then all the other Rangers kind of go in front of him, right? In order to protect him and make sure we got it. Hey, whatever is going on, you take a moment, we got it, right? It's just kind of say, we realize that you're down. You know what I'm saying? You're going through something right now. So you get your life together. We got this thing, right? We've been doing this Air Force thing for 76 years, 77 years almost. I think we can be able to push. But a lot of people tend to take their problems and, like you said, internalize it and it ends up exploding, But the Air Force Airmen and Guardians, Space Force Guardians are a resource, right? Those are the people who kind of take over and take that stuff off your plate so you can really figure out what you need in order to push forward. So I'm glad you had that resource. That makes the difference, right? A lot of people get out because they feel like they didn't have those resources available. It's kind of crazy how that works.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah. What's up, Valentine?
So first off, General Huser, just want to commend you for just kind of like you said, like getting through that year and like look back and be proud of yourself. For those who are probably going through that storm right now, what advice would you give them to kind of just continue to push through and that the light is at the end of the tunnel? Or maybe just advice you would give your past self who couldn't see the other way out?
Yeah. So for people, I never tell people I know what you're going through because it doesn't, every person's experience is different. A death to me is not the same thing as a death to somebody else or the loss of an infant. It's all different for everybody. So I don't say I know what you're going through, but it does help me say, hey, I have suffered losses. I am here to listen. I'm here if you want to scream, if you need a hug, if you want to cry, whatever it is, judgment-free zone, because I have been through everything. It feels like sometimes I've been through everything. I've seen everything. So whatever you have going on in your life, some people are taking care of aging parents. They're taking care of siblings. Some people have adopted their siblings. Everybody's just got so many different challenges and interesting experiences. So I just try and be that person that they can talk to without worrying about, what I think about them or how I'm judging them. And then looking back, I think to my younger self, it took me a long time to learn that it's okay to be my authentic self, that it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay to cry. It's okay to celebrate. It just took me way too long to know that it was okay just to be me. I always tried to be what I thought the Air Force expected me to be. And that was really hard and it wasn't a good time. So once I realized, hey, it's okay just to be me, life was a lot better and I felt a lot freer and a lot more comfortable in my own skin.
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Neat. So, okay. So fast forward to pre-OTS. You gave us some background on that, which is cool. You already told us what inspired you to join the Air Force, right? So are you first generation?
So I'm not first generation Air Force. My dad was enlisted, but he retired when I was only 2 years old. So I really didn't have any experience with it. And I honestly, because he was kind of a typical crusty master sergeant, really, like I said, he was a perfectionist. He expected perfection. He was kind of gruff. I was like, ooh, I don't want to have anything to do with the Air Force if that's what everybody is like. But like I said, I was actually working in a hospital after college because I was going to go to medical school, or so I thought. So I was working in a hospital and I was working a lot of overtime. But I had a friend who was in the Air Force, and he literally just told me how much money he made as a baby second lieutenant in the Air Force. And I was like, wow, that's twice as much money as I make. And I'm working all this overtime and busting my butt. So that's when I trotted down to the recruiter, was when I just heard how much money he made. And honestly, my husband and I didn't think we were going to fit in the Air Force. You know, we're very liberal people. And the Air Force is kind of a conservative organization with the rules and the uniforms and the compliance and discipline. So I was like, we are not going to fit. But man, there's, as you know, the Air Force is this amazing, diverse mixture of amazing human beings. And so both him and I just fell in love with it.
Neat. So here's a crazy question. Here's a pivot, right? Okay. So being a lady, I wanted to ask you, as you were joining, were there some gender or sexism mentalities that you had to experience? At what point did you have to transcend past them, if you experienced them during OTS or any of your experiences to this point?
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, it was shocking when I went to OTS and there were very few women. So that was surprising because obviously in college, tons of women. When I worked in the hospital, tons of women. So that was a little bit shocking. And then my first experience with kind of outright sexism was at OTS. And I remember this very vividly. We were going around the table talking about what we miss about back home. And a lot of the guys in my flight were prior service. So they were married and had kids, and they were talking about missing their spouses and their kids. And there were some tears being shed. And so it got to my turn and I talked about missing my husband, and I shed some tears too. Well, I was the only one that the flight commander pulled aside and said, you cannot cry in the Air Force. You're a woman. You can't cry. And I was so shocked because he didn't tell the guys they couldn't cry. He just told me I couldn't cry. And so I think that's partially what kind of ruined me for that first decade, and thinking that I couldn't be myself. I thought I had to be this very stoic person who didn't have emotions, except anger, because anger, was encouraged. It was encouraged to be an angry leader. But other emotions were discouraged. And I think that's kind of what set me off. But the rest of my experience in the Air Force has been extremely positive. I think a lot of the pressures that I feel I put on myself, I think I need to prove something, but I have to remind myself that that's mostly in my head, that there's nobody telling me I need to prove something. It's all just me saying it to myself. So I have to push those voices away and remind myself that I got here for a reason, that my leaders, believe in me. I have certain experiences. I have qualities that they appreciate, and that's why I'm here. And there's nothing that I need to prove.
Okay. And that's fair. Some pretty significant stories that you got down there that, you got it right there at the gate, right? OTS. It's interesting. Oh, yeah. So pivoting to, OTS, I assume when you found out are going to OTS that you got your AFSC along with it. Is that how that went for you?
Yes.
Okay. So congratulations, you're going to OTS. Oh, by the way, you're going to be a missile, or you're space and missiles, right? That's how it kind of went down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, cool. So I'm going to pivot you more towards the missileer side, right? Because that's pretty much what we know you as. I know you did space. We know that, but we want to focus on missiles because that's what we all know you as, right? Now, you being a lady missileer, most ladies don't go missiles, right? I don't typically see that, right? Let alone make major general. And I know that Cadet Valentine, after you had your initial interview with her, she ran right back to me and she said, man, it was so great. She gave us a bunch of statistics and about how things are for women in the United States Air Force, let alone missiles, let alone flag officers. So I was hoping you could share some of those statistics with us if you have them in your mind, if you can remember some of them, so we can share that information with the world.
Definitely. So I will say that missiles really now attracts a lot of women. About 30% of missileers are women, which is one of the higher percentages in the different AFSCs. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, when I was a group commander, I was really like shocked at how many women we had up at Minot. It was incredible. And that's when we started doing the all women's alerts because there were just so many women. But the problem is, and this is what I told Cadet Valentine, is we lose a lot of women around the 10-year point, usually about when they're about to be a major, around that time, because that's when they're deciding about families and making family decisions, having kids, getting married if they're not already married. And a lot of times women and male members as well think that they need to make a choice between having a family or doing the job. And as you know, being a missileer is even more challenging because you go out to the missile field for 24 hours to a week at a time, which is what they're doing right now. And so having children and doing that can be very challenging. So we do lose a lot of women, which is why I'm very grateful that I have my 2 kids and I try to parade them around against their will so people can see that you can be a mother or a father and still do this job. You can do it. It's not easy. It's freaking hard, but it can be done. So I hope that we encourage women with families or with desires to have families to stay. And there are a lot that are staying. Yeah. So we do lose a lot. And like, for instance, I'm the only female missileer general, but there are a lot who are coming. So I'm very excited. There's just a ton of women coming behind me, women with families, women with kids, women whose husbands are active duty too, or husbands are civilian or their wives are civilian or active duty. So it's just amazing. There's a whole bunch coming. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think that's pretty neat that you are one of one. And that's literally the series that I'm doing, right? After talking to Colonel Galbert and talking to you, I'm trying to find these one of ones and have them describe what their experience has been. So you kind of already told me I'm it, but a storm is coming, right?
That's right. That's right.
They cometh behind me, right? So you're literally a gatekeeper, literally an opener of the gate. They see you and they say, cool, I can do that too. If she's doing that, sitting down and talking to you back in the day, you mentioned that, back when I was deployed at IUD and we had reached out to each other. I don't know if you remember that. I literally had all my young joint service airmen, soldiers, sailors. I just wanted them to meet you. That's who I thought about, right? You and Colonel Galbert, who I think about when you guys should meet my mentors. Like, you guys got to meet them. You want to know how I got this way? Like, these are the people who forged me and I look at them. But I remember you mentioned when it came to family that, sometimes I feel like I'm an awesome general. I'm kicking down doors. I'm doing the thing, but I don't feel great as a mom because I'm missing out on something. And then sometimes I feel like I'm a great mother, but then, I'm not kicking down as many doors, right? I'm not, doing the thing as effectively as I feel like I should be doing. And you said it was a real significant balancing act that you have to pull off. I was trying to see, that was 2020. Yeah, that's 2020. So 4 years have passed. So I want to see if there were any other additional techniques that you have picked up since then, since you had told me that. And I don't know if you even remember me telling you that.
I do. And I don't know if I told you this at the time, but one of my pet peeves is when people say like work-life balance, or you need to achieve work-life balance, or they have like some magic formula, like the 7-4-3-11, whatever, how they manage their day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so stressful. To put all of that on yourself. That's so stressful. So yeah, some days, like recently, my kid was going to the state math competition. I didn't even know she was going until the day before. I felt like a terrible mom. Or I was TDY when she was in the spelling bee. So my husband had to FaceTime me during the spelling bee. So I feel like a bad mom when those things happen. But then, I gave it my all at work during those times, or, I stayed after, or I went TDY, I did the thing, I did the speech, or whatever it is. But there's other times, like next week, I'm taking my kid to a competition. So I took leave. So then I get to pat myself on the back and say, oh, you're being a great mom today. But, I'm going to miss the things at work. So what I do is I remind myself that for the important things, for the most important things for my family, I will be there. For the most important things for my work, I will be there. And both of those organizations, I don't want to call my family an organization, but both of them can count on me to do those things. And over time, it all balances out. I don't have to stress myself out to find balance every day, knowing that over time, it will all balance out.
Yeah, that's a very difficult thing to do. And that's what everyone needs to hear, regardless of their gender or whatever. Because I mean, all of us hit that wall, especially when we were talking about families and things like that. My young cadets constantly ask me about that. And you know, man, how do you juggle 5 kids like one day at a time? You know, trust me, I get the homework is due and it's 10 o'clock at night and it's like, wait, what? Right? Yeah. It's like, I get that all the time, right? I got one down for medical reasons. I got another one down for what? Man, it's a lot to juggle. And I feel the same way. But I know particularly as a lady out there, a female out there, and the family is like the core of what you do, it might feel differently. I wouldn't know. I've never been a female in my life and I'm not going there. Right? I've been a dude my whole time here on Earth. But I assume that, it is a little bit of a different experience how males feel about that versus how females feel about that. So I think the fact that you described that to my soldiers and sailors at the time, I think that kind of helped them figure that out, that, hey, you're going to struggle with this. This is going to be one of those things that we're going to have to kind of find our personal formulas. There, like you said, there's no one formula that fits, right? You're just going to have to figure it out based on your experience, do your thing. That's crazy.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think one thing we need to remember as leaders is that the families of today look very, very different from what they did 20 and 30 years ago. 30 years ago, you would have a leader who was typically a white male. His spouse stayed at home, ironed his uniforms, cooked his dinners, did the laundry. The kids were already grown and out of the house. And today's families don't look like that. We have a lot of single parents. We have families whose spouse is their job is just as important as the military member. They are waiting longer to have kids. Like it's just completely different. And so I think we need to keep that in mind as we're taking care of people. We just have to remember that families are different now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely want to kind of double back on when you mentioned the all-female alerts, because our F.E. Warren ended up getting that as well, right? And I didn't know if that I didn't know if that started at Minot when you were group commander. Is that where that cord started?
It did, and I'll tell you the story of that. So it was all of us kind of collectively up there realizing that we had so many women that we could fill every launch control center with women. Right. And then we could do it across the other wings as well, all on a single day and celebrate it. But, as soon as those words were spoken, the trolls came out and, said, well, when's the all male alert? And I was like, you guys had the all male alert for decades. It's our turn. So I was like, well, never mind. This is too hard. It's people are too ugly. Let's not do it. But it was my 4 male squadron commanders who came to me and said, no, this is important. We need to do this. And they're the ones who suggested doing it during Women's History Month and just the importance of highlighting the many amazing women that we have doing this job, hopefully showing younger generations that, hey, if you're a woman, this job is also for you and you can do it and have a great career. So it was the 4 male squadron commanders who really advocated for starting the Women's Alert. It was amazing.
That's cool. I really appreciate that because I was able to experience like what that looked like from the outside. And I was like, that is really cool. One thing that I shared that when I went to cyber school and I said, during Women's History Month, all the ladies across all the wings, they go and they pull alert for the day to show that, hey, we can do this. So I was talking to 2 ladies that were, accompanying me. And one was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, that's really neat. And the other person was like, well, I don't really feel anything about that. Like, I guess she wasn't in support of it. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. It is what it is. But I just felt like that was, I figured, all ladies would be on that boat, but not necessarily.
Yeah, I would say it's a little different now because the way they're doing alerts now is it's a different construct. So it's a bit more challenging. But I do want to go back to what you just said about sometimes women are not supportive. I used to be one of those women. I used to be a woman who I was perfectly happy being the only woman who worked in the office or the first woman who did the job. I was like the queen bee. I'm just one of the guys. I love that feeling. But it got to a point, probably about that same time where I said I kind of changed and matured a little bit. I got to a point where I was like, no, this isn't right. I shouldn't be the only woman or the first woman. There should be women all around me and there should be women who came before me. And so that's when I realized the importance of celebrating women, advocating for my fellow women, being there and being a mentor for my fellow women, just doing everything I could in my power in my small corner of the world to just help women realize the opportunities that are there for them, and that there's really nothing holding them back.
Yeah, you literally like crushed the next question I had for you. It's literally how did the being one of one, feel like when you're the only one in the room or you're the only one X, Y, and Z. Is it changed? For you, it changed. It shifted to the point where it was like, yeah, it was cool at this point, but then at this point, it's like, why are there not other people like floating around, making decisions, doing the thing, giving the advice? Where are the rest of my people at? Right? Kind of deal.
Exactly. But I still have a habit. Every time I go to a meeting or a conference, I still count the number of women in the room and calculate the percentage. I can't help myself because I'm always just like, where are they?
Right. But like you said, they're coming. They're coming.
That's right.
That's just cool. That's really cool. So here's another question. So as a lady warfighter, do you feel that you have to work harder than your male counterparts? And if you do, what do you feel is driving that?
So I do, but it's only because I've done that to myself. Sometimes when you're in a minority, no matter what you do, good or bad, it's going to stand out and be remembered more. Because you are noticeable. So I do keep that in mind and as you're a leader, any leader, people are always watching. So you talked about, some sweet dance moves. I once got in trouble for my sweet dance moves. And I was like, oh, that's right. I'm a wing commander. I probably shouldn't be dancing like that at the club. Yes, because people are always watching, no matter what gender you are, of course. But like I said, a lot of the pressure, I put it on myself. I think that I have to work harder to prove something, but I keep, that voice that says, no, that's not true. You're making that up. It's not necessarily true.
Yeah. So I'm sure Santa and Valentine can probably relate to that where, we put that on ourselves. And I analyze that as well, being in the minority as well myself is why is that? Well, it's not somebody just came and told me, hey, you got to work harder, X, Y, and Z, right? It's not that. It's not the majority telling me that, right? It's inside. So I kind of try to analyze why is it inside? And I took it as I represent those who look like me, right? And I don't want to send a bad message regardless, whether it's the male, it's the Black American. I don't want to send a bad message, right? I want them to see that they see me, they see anybody else that looks like me, that we're going to go hard. Right. I don't get an opportunity to not go hard. Right. I gotta go hard every time. So I figured, because I know me and Valentine and me and Santa had that conversation on the side. Ladies, tell me how you guys feel about that where you guys feel like you guys have to go hard, like, and don't have really a choice in the matter. Valentine, you got anything for that?
Yeah. I mean, there's literally only one of me and I think the entire POC Corps. And it's been like that since I basically came in the program. I don't know. I always felt like I had to work 2 times just as hard just to be on the same level, if that, for some other people where they just kind of come in and they're just there. They just got to show up and it's like, wow, everyone's just like, they're doing God's work. But like, honestly, and I don't know, it's just like throughout my entire RTC career, even now, I always feel like I have to go one step above just to stand out and just to like, if I'm trying to prove something. And I remember when I was doing research for my decision brief last semester or like last year, a lot of people sometimes tend to self-eliminate. And I think sometimes I would have that mindset thinking like, oh, I'm not going to get it, or maybe I shouldn't even try. But like, that's not the case. It's like, we deserve to be here just as anyone else. And I think sometimes I have to remind myself, and so that's how it's been.
That's great. And I'm so grateful you mentioned self-elimination, because we've seen that so many times, both in the civilian side and the military, that a lot of women and minority groups think that you have to be 100% qualified for whatever it is. If you're applying for a job, a position, an opportunity, you tend to think, oh, I need to be 100% qualified. And if I'm not even going to try. Whereas our male counterparts, especially white male counterparts, don't think that way. They think, okay, well, I've got the majority of the qualities that are needed. So they throw their name in the hat. Yeah. So we've got to learn to do that too. Or when we're hiring people, we need to make sure that everybody's included in the pool and we don't give people the opportunity to self-eliminate.
Yeah, I think like we realize we have to be our biggest advocates because no one's going to do it for us. Last semester, I had to have a really hard conversation with the cadet wing commander about the issues that the women were having in a det. And like, no one's like, and the thing is that they just weren't even aware that this was even a problem. And like, I don't know, I just know coming up into this program, I was always so hesitant to speak up because what are they going to say? You know, like, what are they going to think? But then you realize like, no one's going to speak up for you. And you have to be that person. And I think it kind of helps. And I realized, wow, I actually have a strong personality and like, I'm actually very vocal about things. And so again, you just have to be the biggest advocate for yourself because no one's going to do it.
That's great.
So we're wrapping this thing up. General, how much power you got?
I don't know. I'm afraid to minimize the screen, but it said 10%, 10% about 10 minutes ago. So
all right, cool. Okay. So we're going to roll. The last formal question that I have for you before we go into our speed round is, what would your overall message to the Air Force and Space Force and DOD ladies of the past, present, and future? What is your overall message to them?
So to the ladies, I would say celebrate yourselves, celebrate each other, hold each other up, be there for each other, advocate for each other. And for the males, I would say pretty much the same thing. You know, men can be the greatest advocates for women. When a woman's voice is not being heard in the room, a man echoing her words and pointing her out and saying, "Did you hear what she just said?" is such a strong message. And it just makes for just amazing advocacy. And I appreciate all the men in my life who have helped hold me up.
Wonderful. Okay, time for the speed round. Time to get to know who you really, really are when the pressure's on. Speed round. You got 3 seconds to answer. No explanation needed. You get one pass. You ready? Okay. If you only had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Steak.
What is the world's worst pizza topping?
Oh, olives.
What is your favorite season of the year?
Fall.
Who is your biggest celebrity crush?
Oh my gosh. Oh shoot. Oh, I have so many. Jean-Luc I'm going to say Jean-Luc Picard. I just love that bald head.
Okay. In school, what was your favorite subject?
Math.
Okay. What is the first question you would ask if you met your idol?
Oh my gosh. I would probably ask them, what were they like growing up?
Okay. What was the one thing you cannot live without?
Chapstick.
Wonderful. See, not so bad, ma'am. As we wrap this thing up, I always try to have some comforting words for those who are out there and listening. I want to wrap this thing up with a personal experience that I witnessed that I saw with you at F.E. Warren. I was literally, I don't know if you remember this, I was at Lieutenant at the time, Alex Hernandez's daughter's birthday. And all of a sudden I saw you attend. And I was like, is that the colonel? Is that the wing commander? I was starstruck. Like, what is she doing here? This is a lieutenant. You know what I mean? It didn't make sense. It didn't add up. It was probably Liz, probably invited you. The cool part was that you attended. You showed up. Like, and we're bottom lieutenants. Like, we're just crew dogs. But the fact that the wing commander showed a presence and talked to everybody, and it was just some young kid's birthday party, and you were just there, that really spoke out to me. It said that as a, higher level person, I can go down there and intermingle with the people. So I really appreciate what you have done, and the fact that you can actually, go down to that level, let me know that I could go down to that level. So with that being said, we're going to close out this interview. We appreciate everything, and we will see you all on the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Keys to Military Success with Team R.E.D Alert, advised by Christian Sledge. Christian Sledge is a prior enlisted officer of the United States Air Force with over 20 years of military experience. Team R.E.D Alert was assembled by the members of the AFROTC Detachment 4 at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas in 2023. This team has answered the call for the need for military leadership, knowledge, and enlightenment, and is dedicated to providing you with the keys to military success. Remember, as you embark on your own journey to success, lead with a kind heart. Have respect, care for others, and the mission will take care of itself. With the keys to military success in hand, the possibilities are endless.